What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show. If you serve the country and have good lessons or examples to provide to other people from that, and you can do that through the work you do, and you can do that and make money doing that, being a best-selling author like you are, or having a podcast like you do, or things like that, I don't know why anyone has a problem with that. That blows my mind. Secondly, you make the point about how different people can experience the same thing in a different way. And then things can get twisted that way. Well, I don't remember it like that, or I don't remember it like that. You know, that's why I think what guys like you and Sean are doing is so valuable, because essentially, you know, and you have on different guests too, but you have on a lot of veterans, and you guys both have on a lot of veterans specifically from like the global war on terror era. And like we are getting an oral history of that era from people who were in the Marines, people who were in the infantry, people who were in the Army Rangers, people who were in the Navy SEAL, all these different people who had different roles in Afghanistan, Iraq, and the like. And like, I think that's so important and such a big service, because that way at least people can maybe put things together and see like, oh, it was different for these guys and from these guys. And then they may think, even like some veterans may think when they see this stuff like, oh, maybe I am jumping to conclusions on other people and I shouldn't be, you know, talking about this.
Well, yeah, and I agree. I think the one kind of tricky part there is, and I'm not saying it's okay to lie, but when one guy thinks that didn't happen, he's lying.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's where it's always justified, is like, well, I don't have a problem with him being successful. I have a problem with him lying about what he did or didn't do, or, you know, or whatever. And so that's where the tricky part is. And so, you know, for me at least, like, if I wasn't there, I'm not going to have a fucking opinion on it, period. You know, like, that's just the reality of it. And by there, I don't mean like I was in country at the same time, or it was our sister platoon and they were in this town. Like, if I wasn't on the fucking mission, you're not going to get an opinion from me on it in terms of what went down and whether or not it shook out the way somebody said or not, because it's not my fucking business, you know, and it's not my story to tell. So, I don't understand why people spend so much time arguing and slinging mud at one another about it. It's pretty irritating.
Yeah, hope to see it slow down. But anyway, we left off where you were getting in actually to Team 3 and coming into service. So you had mentioned this, but it was an interesting time, because this is, I guess, like 4 years before 9/11, give or take. The only thing, so to speak, that had really been going down publicly was all the balkanization in Europe. And at the time, Al-Qaeda was kind of like this thing the intelligence community was tracking, but a lot of people weren't making a big deal out of it. And then in the late 90s, some attacks overseas happened. There was the embassy bombing, and then there were one or two others, and then I believe there was the USS Cole. Right. And was that your first mission, going to the Cole, or did you do things before that?
Yeah, I mean, that was my first, I would say, real taste of violent extremist terrorism and the impact that it had on the United States and the military, and that was in 2000, but October of 2000. And so,
can you explain to people what that was for who don't know the history?
Yeah, so one of our faults, I think, is that, and again, pre 9/11, I think it was a lot easier to understand why we were so complacent. Not that it's an excuse, but it's at least an understanding. I mean, whether, like, even take the Bud's base, like, there was no gate guard at night prior to 9/11. Like, anybody could just drive on the fucking Bud's compound base. There was nobody standing guard duty, which is weird to think of now. It's like, it's impossible to even imagine now.
Yeah.
You know, so like, that is kind of a classic example. But another, I would say, equally ridiculous thing that we were doing is that within the confines of the military and the war machine that exists, you have USNS ships, which is United States Naval Ship. It's not a USS ship. So the USS are combative vessels. USNS ships are supply vessels, tankers, etc. And so both USNS ships and even USS ships would pull into ports all over the world for resupply. And so that's what happened in the Gulf of Aden in Yemen, is the USS Cole was pulling in for a resupply, which, again, like, thinking of that now, it's like, what? But yeah, you let, Yemenis port of Aden, pull 2 fucking tugboats up next to the Cole and push it into a spot where they're going to unload pallets of food and water and fuel. And again, it's like it's impossible to even think that was something that happened, but it did all over the world. And so, Al-Qaeda being who they are and taking advantage of the things that they take advantage, saw that as an easy target. And so that's what they did. So they basically took a couple thousand pounds of explosives and laden this little tugboat, or what looked like a tugboat, and then replaced one of the tugboats, got up alongside it, started pushing it in, and then clacked themselves off and blew a fucking massive hole in the side of the ship and almost sunk it. It killed 19 U.S. Sailors. Damage control-wise, the mechanisms within the ship were competent enough and quick acting enough to shut different things down and make it to where the ship didn't sink.
How did they do that?
So, going back to World War II, even with torpedoes, like there are very specific protocols for taking on water at different points of the ship, and so they can close hatches and shut things down to compartmentalize it so that it doesn't just run through the entire boat. So that's the gist of it. It's called damage control, which there's an actual job called D-Seaman, which that's their entire fucking job is to mitigate damage and control it on a ship for instances like that. So they were Johnny on the spot, got it all under control. Now it was like half sunk and listing to one side real heavy, but it didn't sink. And so the goal was for Al-Qaeda was to sink it entirely. So the fact that they didn't sink it pissed them off. And then so they kind of vowed, even the Marban open radios were threatening, saying, the ship is not leaving the harbor. We will fucking sink it.
After they bombed it.
Right. And so we had just gone from Australia to Bahrain. So we're sitting in Bahrain waiting to do a bunch of exercises and desert warfare training. That happens. So we jump on the USS Tarah and haul ass down there.
How fast were you able to get there?
It took like a day and a half, I think. Not super far, but the Tarah was a big amphibious ship. It doesn't go terribly fast. And maybe even a couple days. I'm not even sure. But so we get down there, and then so for 63 days straight, our tasking is from sundown to sunup. We're going to be in 2 different boats that are circling the ship, and then we're going to have a 60 gunner, a law gunner, a sniper, and a comms unit, and a couple other guys that are just armed with regular M4s on the ship, maintaining a security presence and not allowing them to come finish sinking it. So for 63 days we did that, and it was an eye opener for sure. I mean, number one, like all of the power was shut down. You have 19 dead bodies that are mangled and buried in this ship that's sitting.
They're buried in the ship.
Yeah, like they're all all like in different compartments of the ship that are shut down with 90-degree salt water submerging. Like, so you can imagine what that smelled like.
Oh, because they had to close it.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So all of those dead bodies were still compartmentalized, and some of them lodged, in different parts of the ship.
Oh.
And then you have, an entire galley's worth of food that's now not refrigerated for 2 months.
Wait, so for 63 days they had that? There wasn't a way to
No. I mean, like at that point, so what we were waiting on was a floating dry dock, which was, I think, called the Marlin Spike. Came all the way from Mississippi. It had to get, and then we had to drag as a country, we had to get the coal out into international waters, get it loaded up onto this floating dry dock, and then send it back to Mississippi and have it completely redone, and which it did, and then ended up, now it's back in the fleet and deploying again. But
and that's where they take the bodies out in Mississippi.
Yeah, yep. So yeah, for that 2-month period, it was pretty dicey, and there were a few different instances where they would kind of test the waters and try to infiltrate our circle of trust, if you will, and
like on a tugboat, or
no, like on little motorboats. They'd come in, or even like these little dong miniature fucking ships that they would try to sail in or whatever. They're just poking and trying to see if they could get past, and we never ended up opening up on anybody. There were a few times where we came real close, but if they came anywhere near our kind of invisible fence, if you will, we would haul ass out there and draw down on them and what have you. But
where were you usually sitting again?
I was on one of the little boats that was floating around in the water. That whole
like
time.
How close to the boat to the Cole?
I mean, we would be right up alongside it and all the way to probably 350, 400 yards outside of it.
And how many guys did you say it was again from the SEALs doing this?
16.
16
total. So you'd have, probably 10 of them on the ship and then 3 in each boat with our special boat unit guys driving the boat and a guy on either a 50 cal or a Mark 19 grenade launcher.
And doing it in shifts because you're doing it 24/7 or
sundown to sunup. And so just one long shift like we were.
Oh, so you weren't worried about it overnight?
No, we were. I'm sorry, from sundown to sunup.
Did I get that wrong?
Yeah. So, so during the day, the Marines did that. So
got it. Okay.
Daylight, the Marines had it. Nighttime, we had it. And so, yeah, we would, at dusk, we would head that way. We take over the watch. Sun comes up. They relieve us. We go back out to the boat. So yeah, 7 days a week, 63 days straight. We did that. And then they finally got it out to the Marlin Spike and got it loaded up. There was one instance on the way while it was being tugged out to sea, a small other boat was hauling ass straight towards it, and we thought that they were going to try to do one last ditch effort thing, and it ended up being a Yemeni patrol boat that we boarded and almost shot everybody on it, like because they were military guys, or there were a few military guys.
But you weren't sure?
Well, I mean, it's just like they're in military uniforms, they have weapons, and so we take over the tug and flood it and then taking it down, and these guys are all just like, holy shit. And there was one officer in particular who they all just had pistol belts on with pistols, so they weren't standing there with AKs or anything, but he starts to fucking put his hand on his gun, and myself, Clint and Shane, two of my closest friends, all just swarm him and get our guns right up in his fucking grill and come off safe and just getting ready to fucking plug him. And then he's like, no, you know what? I'm going to put my hands back up. And so it was, they didn't recognize who it was. So they were responding thinking this was some unknown, whatever, just basically I don't know that I'd even call it a miscommunication. We didn't really feel like it was our job to let them know that we were doing that. And they saw something on the radar out there that they didn't recognize. So they were going to check it out. But so it wasn't really a big deal. But
was that the first time you ever put a weapon in somebody's face on duty?
For real, yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Oh, well, I say I did it a number of times in the water prior to that. Boats that would come up, we would draw down on them and stuff, but nothing ever happened.
Did it jack your adrenaline, though?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. The one, I wouldn't say nice thing, the thing about training to a certain level of conditioning is that it becomes like a conditioned response, really. And so, yes, the adrenaline is there, but it's kind of graduated and it does level off a fair bit. It's not like the first time you jump out of an airplane or, whatever. It's not as crazy just because you're kind of so used to doing that stuff. Still there, just not.
Yeah.
But.
And during those 63 days, you have the 19 guys who perished who are still, their bodies are stuck in there. But then you had a whole ship. I would imagine the whole crew was still there, no?
Yeah. Yep.
How many guys, approximately?
A couple hundred.
So, I mean, what was their vibe after that? Just like shell shock?
Yeah. Yeah. And, it was weird because the first couple nights we were there, we actually stayed on the ship. We stayed, like, you do the math, there's 16 of us, there's 19 dead people. So there's 19 open racks and we're sleeping in them.
Oh my God.
And so it's like we're laying there and these, like you look across and, on a Navy ship, it's not very big. I mean, they'd have 18 fucking dudes in a room this size, just fucking stacked on top of each other in small racks. And so, like you're laying there and like you can just feel this motherfucker eyeballing you and you look over and he's just like, staring at you with the 1,000-yard stare, like fucking crying or, whatever. And you're just like, Jesus Christ, like, throw the curtain closed and, so.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.